that we are having in this country. They are thinking of solutions. And I'll give you an example of one of the solutions, ICT solutions, that has been profiled to us. This is a solution that has been created by the youth. It's for savings. The youth are saving. So I'll give you the example here is for a child who is 7 years old, and he's working with his parents, and his parents are saving 200 shillings every single day to buy him a PS. The app that has been created, which is for beyond 2030, definitely, the app that has been created has reminders, but the reminders from the child are more consequential than the reminders from the app. And so we are looking at children who are learning discipline. They are learning the importance of investing. They are learning how to invest small, waiting to grow big from the innovations that we have. I would like to invite Felix from Sanifu. I don't know if he's around. And if he's not around, I'll invite Naini Lankas to come in and talk about the investments, the legal avenue that we have, the legal infrastructure. Come. Yes, come.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much for this initiative to actually look at vision beyond 2030. So my name is Sidney Rema. I'm a co-founder and CEO at a company called Sanifu AI. We are kind of the frontiers of AI in Kenya for small businesses. We are servicing many across Africa, not just in Kenya. Most of the big companies, around use Sanifu AI to process things like orders, invoices, pay taxes, and all that. So I think for today, beyond 2030 for us, what we are looking at is we are enabling a new digital economy. We're enabling a new digital economy. Sanifu has the capability to enable young people who don't even have any coding skills to be able to actually build data applications by just describing it, which means we are seeing more people opening AI agencies, servicing businesses that have never accessed AI before. And one interesting thing you'd actually note is that, yes, we do have all this conversation about AI, but I don't think people really conceptualize what's happening. And I say this as let me say as an ex-user. You always have people saying, hey, these are things that are happening maybe in the US and other countries, but they don't really conceptualize what is actually happening. And I would like to suggest something. Maybe the team or the task force that is planning towards Beyond Vision 2030, if there's one single investment that will actually make, that will significantly change the country or significantly change the future of the younger generation right now, is deliberately investing in training in AI and technology. You can build all the roads in the world, that's good. We'll build the roads, we'll build the infrastructure, but if you cannot stimulate the young people to actually understand how to quickly adopt AI and technology very fast, I don't think we'll actually have the leap that we're expecting. And I'll give you a good example. A few years back, we were doing charity in different children's homes where we were issuing computers that are old from, all these government offices. And we were training kids as young as 5 years, 7 years, 8 years old on how to use basic computers. And you'll actually be surprised what kind of applications they're able to build by the time they're 13. So yes, I think that is one ask. The second ask, allow me, the second ask is I've built startups for the last almost 15 years. And I'll tell you for sure, we always feel alone. I've raised capital from some of the biggest investors in the world, but I see so many startups dying every single day. I see startups that are actually building not just for the Kenyan market, but for the African market as a whole. They die every single day. There is no proper structure for support. There is no investor incentives. There's a lot of changing policies that are making investors not want to invest in us. And I can tell you for sure, if you really and truly want to invest in the young people, think about tech and AI. And don't think about it in terms of suggestive, hey, schools teach this and this. No, mandatory. Make it a mandatory class. Make it a mandatory class across the entire curriculum, essentially, for that. That's my 1-2. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Because of time, the media team, you can play the clip in terms of how the young people want to see the future that they want to build today. Things that Sydney and the team are building, we want to see how do they look 100 from now.
Now open them. This is Kenya at 100. And it begins in our classrooms. Every child with a world-class education made for them. A nation of builders, cities dreamed by our own people and raised by our own hands. Every corner connected, from the lake to the ocean, no Kenyan left behind. Powered by the brilliance of our young people, the 75%. Feeding ourselves, sustaining our land, prosperity grown at home. Clean power from our valleys, our winds in the atom. Energy that never runs dry.
Made in Kenya, built by Kenyans, traded with the world. Our wildlife protected, our heritage alive, the world welcomed as family. A thriving blue economy, from the port of Mombasa to every fishing village. Health and dignity for every Kenyan, from the first breath to the last. But this future is not a promise, it is a project, and it begins today with you. And we start building today. A time capsule travels across all 47 counties, awakening builders and dreamers. Your ideas, captured and preserved. The boldest go into development with seed financing ready. Kenya 100, future yetu, tuko ready.
Future yetu? Future yetu? Now you understand the concept of the 100 and the 75, right? Very good students. In this presentation, you've seen a time capsule. Have you seen it? So this time capsule was conceptualized by the over 10,000 young people who applied for these ideas, and it will be flagged off by the matatus we have. There's a time capsule there that will be going across all the 47 counties to collect views, to collect ideas from the young people so that they start building. And there is available financing of at least $1 million shillings per the bold idea that will take Kenya to the next level. I would like to invite Kevin to slightly talk about the capsule, then we finish up.
I am a beneficiary of the friendship of Alliance High School alumni. Bernard drags me into every room that opens up for him. So I am very grateful to Alliance High School for that friendship that they extend to people. My young creators also tend to speak very quickly, and so I get the work of explaining things a bit carefully because we are required to bring everybody along. So will you allow me to do that? So what didn't land before the video happened is a website that has been created by this able team. The website is live as we speak, hackkenya100.com. This website is being populated and advertised by a group of young people who you may not have met because they are in the far end where there are two matatus. Now, what is happening, many people who are picking up the mic, they are addressing His Excellency. What these young people are doing, they are saying, Your Excellency, we have a solution to help because the government cannot create jobs for everybody. And in our presence, we have a 16-year-old who has already announced his intention to eye the same seat. So young people who are in our midst, we must quit asking the government and we must start building solutions. And what this team has done, they have provided a website where if you see a shortcoming in any service delivery, propose it as what they are calling the hack. Are we together so far? So, you would be saying, Your Excellency, we have provided a hack. Can we get funding for this hack? Now, these ideas are not limited to Kenya. I need you to know we have a community of over 400,000 Kenyans in the diaspora. In the interest of time, I may not go through all of them. So the hack involves how can we interact with Kenyans in the diaspora. We have very many Kenyans who, many years, we've been exporting our brains. We export our brains from Nyeri, from Kericho. We export our brains everywhere. Somebody said when you're in front of the head of state, there is heat. The heat is acting on me. Allow me to gain my composure. Aya, sawa. So now what is going to happen is that there are communities of Kenyans in the diaspora. How are we connecting with them to link up with them and solve these solutions? Because in our interactions with Kenyans in the diaspora, they want to come back to Kenya, isn't it? You know Kenyans in the diaspora want to come back to Kenya, isn't it? What will they find? They will find these businesses that they need to expand. And so if you are in our midst and you're following us, that is what Hack 100 is about. Allow me to do the second bit of explanation, which my team did very quickly. And I will use a visual aid. Why? We must bring everybody along. Are we together? So they mentioned Hack 100, and then they said there is a capsule. So we carried a capsule to be able to explain where the idea of the capsule came from. So a capsule is this shape, and I know it is small. So we carried a bigger one so that we bring everybody along. So this capsule is going to go everywhere where Kenyans are so that you can put your ideas in it. So I'm going to open this capsule. So this capsule is going to be the conversation builder amongst young people. Instead of begging the government to do things, what ideas have you put in this capsule so that when we reach your location, we can unpack the contents of this capsule. When this capsule goes all around, we will preserve our memories, we will preserve our aspirations, and it is proposed for these ideas to be preserved, and hopefully when we celebrate Kenya at 100, it will be opened to see, did we make it? Did we not? Was the dream achievable? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The capsule is way bigger than it is, and it's outside the matatus. Thank you, Your Excellency, and that is all the time we had.
Asante sana. Thank you to the team, Bernard, and the rest of them, Mika and all. This is just the beginning. There's an online platform where you can interact with all the features that they have showcased here, and you'll be able to do that. And again, just to reiterate, as I call on the next round of stakeholders who are here in many ways as representatives, as citizens, but also with the bodies that they represent, the sectors that they represent, I should say. And as we do that, as we set up this particular sitting for them, I'd like to call on the Deputy President. Deputy President, Professor Kicc, if you may, because just as a quick word, because in this conversation as we move forward, we are looking at where do we go from here? How will different stakeholders engage in the national conversation? So we do have representation from a Kenya Association of Manufacturers. We have from the National Securities Exchange. And just as well as someone who has seen the journey over the years with the previous administrations, much as what we are charting forward is going to surpass and go beyond just particular governments. But we have seen the contribution of the previous government to the Vision 2030. That was led by the late President Mwai Kibaki. That was led by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And now that this particular leadership has contributed to in bringing success to Vision 2030 and pushing it forward. So how, in your view, you would say we have an outlook to build beyond Vision 2030, just as we set up this stage, and I'll call on those stakeholders to come up and speak. Just as the President gave a quick word here, karibu sana to the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki. Tumpe makofi tafadhali.
Wakenya hoye! Wakenya hoye! Mheshimiwa Rais, nimeulizwa ya kwamba kwa dakika 3 niseme hatua ambazo serikali imepiga katika kupeleka Kenya mbele na ruwaza ya kuboresha maisha ya Wakenya ili tuwe kati ya nchi zilizoendelea katika siku za usoni. I am proud to report on behalf of the government of Kenya that the last 4 years, under the leadership of President William Ruto, we have been able to do a number of things. And I want to highlight some of the steps that we've taken as a country in taking the development of our country forward from where President Ruto found it. Number 1, this administration has been able to stabilize our economic fundamentals that underwrite our long-term development path. The pillars of development, agriculture, industry, business, enterprise, and so forth, infrastructure, must rest on strong, stable economic fundamentals. All the indicators are showing to a stable economy, a strong currency. For the last 2.5 years, the Kenyan currency has been stable. We found it at 162, 165 to the dollar. It has been stuck at 129 for 2.5 years, showing economic stability. We have multiplied our foreign exchange reserves from $5.7 US in 2022 to today, 15.1 billion US dollars, the highest foreign exchange reserves in the history of our country. When President Ruto took over, we didn't have enough foreign exchange. And of course, foreign exchange is a factor for international trade and stabilizing the economy. We have also been able to reduce interest rates. We have also been able to be rated favorably, not by ourselves, but by international sovereign rating agencies. Standards and Poor's, Moody's have now upgraded the economy of Kenya to a stable economy. And there are many other fundamentals that I can speak to, including moderating inflation from 9.6% where we found it to now a stable under 6%, and we are still working on the issue of inflation. Of course, on that front also, we have been able to attract last year the highest amount of foreign direct investment in the history of our country, 3.2 billion US dollars. This is a report of the United Nations agency, UNCTAD, last year. And all these things put together are showing a stable economy. The central bank lending rate to commercial banks has come down from 13.5% to 8.75% at the moment. The price of government paper, government bonds, and treasury bills has come down, and now that means private sector can access credit and so forth and so on. We have stabilized the economy. Number 2, we've been able to work on the agricultural transformation, and we have achieved a number of things under the agricultural transformation pillar. We have been able, for example, to register our farmers. We used to work on guesswork. We didn't know how many farmers we have, where they are, what they grow, the size of their farms, the kind of fertilizer they need. Now we have a register of 7.2 million farmers. We have also been able to increased our production of some of the major value chains in agriculture. Maize production has grown from 44 million bags in 2022 to 75 million bags last year to underwrite our food security. Unga prices have also been moderated from 250 shillings to right now around 140, 150 for 2 kilograms. We've also been able to transform the coffee sector by removing cartels and increasing our production of coffee, and also the income to coffee farmers has now grown from 60, 70 shillings a kilo of cherry to about 120 to 160 per kilogram of cherry. Our tea production has grown from $138 billion shillings, 138 billion shillings in 2022 to last year's 215 billion shillings. Our sugar production has grown from 472,000 metric tons in 2022 to last year's 815,000 metric tons of sugar. And therefore, that is a big milestone in terms of that value chains, and we have now more farmers benefiting in that sector. We have revived the industries and the factories in the sugar sector and so forth and so on. So we are also now the largest producer of processed milk in Africa, because we have moved our milk production, processed milk, from 4.6 billion liters a year in 2022 to currently, by last year, 5.5 billion liters. Kenya now has overtaken 3 other countries, and we are the #1 producer of processed milk in the African continent. So we have done some progress. We are vaccinating our livestock to make sure we get herd immunity so that we can promote exports of livestock products. Right now we have vaccinated 8.9 million heads of cattle, and we're in the process of achieving the target of over 70% immunization. We are also promoting dairy farming, and by also managing the price of sexed semen, which we found at 8,000 per dose, and now it is at 1,400 per dose. More farmers are getting hybrids through sexed semen. So that is agriculture. Number 3, education, very quickly. This is quick fire. In education, we've done a few things. One, we've been able to streamline CBC curriculum. The uncertainties which were there around the curriculum have now been stabilized. We have transitioned from one level to another, which is seamless. Number 2, we have increased funding to education from 500 billion shillings 2022. This year, it's 784 billion shillings. And that is a big leap in this sector. Funding for universities has increased from 42 billion shillings in 2022 to 82 billion shillings last year. Scholarships to university students was increased from 17 billion shillings in 2022 to 41 billion shillings last year. We have employed 100,000 teachers. We have constructed 23,000 classrooms. We have improved on the funding model for our universities, and there is a bill before Parliament now to make sure that every young person, every student who qualifies to join university is funded fully and completely without any regard to the kind of background they come from. So those are some of the highlights we've done in the education sector. Work in progress. Universal health care, we have moved the number of Kenyans with public medical insurance cover from 8 million under NHIF to currently 32.2 million Kenyans. We are working to modernize the equipment, enhance drug supply, and make sure that our health professionals are motivated to make sure that we perfect the universal health coverage. Number 5, on public infrastructure, we are working on roads, railway, airports, seaports. On the roads sector, when President William Ruto took over, many roads had stalled and we didn't have money to unlock that funding. Through innovative resource mobilization, we've been able to pay all road contractors the pending bills. And today, the roads that are stalled across Kenya, which amount to 6,000 kilometers across the 47 counties, we've paid all the pending bills, 177 billion shillings, and the contractors now are back. Every county is experiencing road construction, including areas of our country that for a long time had been left out. You have heard about the famous Ruto Road from Isiolo to Modogashe to Kulamawe. You've heard about that road? Barabara itoke Isiolo, iende Kulamawe, iende Modogashe, iende Samata, itoke Samata, iende Wajia. Wajia Tarbaj. Tarbaj itoke hapo iende Kotulo. Itoke Kotulo Kobo. Kobo Elwak. Elwak Gare. Gare Ramu. Itoke Ramu iende Mandera. Rais Ruto ni fire, si fire. You must also be aware that under this administration, we are connecting the port of Lamu through Ijara to Garissa to Isiolo, areas of our country that for a long time had been left out. But we are also working on extending the SGR from Naivasha into Kisumu, Busia, Malaba. That project is ongoing as we speak today. We are building a new terminal, a new airport at Jomo Kenyatta, something we had not imagined we could do it. 155 billion shillings, again through innovative funding arrangements to make sure that we have modern infrastructure. Right now, we also have a port modernization program, which is about 60 billion. And that is taking place at the port of Mombasa, seaports, airports, railways, roads, because that is what will take us to the first world. The so-called shiny things. I had a not so informed critic saying that we don't want shiny things. The difference between the third world, where we are, and the first world, partly is the shiny things. There are better roads, better airports, better facilities across the board. So that's what we are doing around infrastructure. Energy, the president has mentioned, we have moved connectivity to 10.3 million households, up from 8.9 million households. The target is to reach all the households of Kenya, the 15.6 million homesteads. And in the next 4 years, we'll have achieved that target of universal electricity connection. But we need our production capacity to go up, and that's why President Ruto has come up with the National Infrastructure Fund to be able to rejig the agricultural transformation agenda, to rejig our energy production capacity, and also to help us with irrigation and to help us with the infrastructure as we continue expanding on what already has been done. As you are aware, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly as I wind up, you have a few other highlights. We are trying to create as many jobs as possible to the people of Kenya. We have a number of programs. The Kazi Kwa Ground program through affordable housing, 650,000 Kenyans already working in that space, working towards 1 million Kenyans plus. We also have Kazi Mtandaoni, about 300,000 Kenyans who are earning a living through digital jobs. How have we created digital jobs? By increasing connectivity of the fiber optic cable. Right now we have built over 30,000 kilometers of the fiber optic cable terrestrially on our land to make sure that we have connectivity, and we are also doing ICT hubs, already completed 382 ICT hubs, and another 416 hubs are under construction to be completed in the course of the year. But we are also creating jobs through the Overseas Employment and Job Creation Program, Kazi Maju, 538,000 Kenyans, facilitated by government, which has put in place a transparent program of promoting overseas labor. And this has helped us to increase the remittances from our diaspora so that we can use that money to build our economy. So we are creating that. Just allow me to say maybe one last thing that I left out around public infrastructure. We've made a lot of progress. Since 1987, that is the last year that Kenya built a good international standard stadium. And that was Kasarani in 1987 during the All African Games. President Ruto has put up Talanta, the Raila Odinga Talanta Sports Center. It is there for all to see, 60,000 seater. And on that basis, we are hosting AFCON 2027, together with Uganda and Tanzania. President Ruto's administration has also refurbished Kasarani and Nyayo into international standards. And above all, and most important, President William Ruto's administration is currently building 32 other stadiums across the counties of Kenya. No other administration has been able to improve the sports infrastructure to that level. Your Excellency, the President, we have done some work. A lot of work needs to be done. You have laid the foundation. We now, as we have this conversation, we want to see what levers we have to take our country to the next level. And already, the coming into force of the National Infrastructure Fund and the Sovereign Wealth Fund, those two instruments of financial and resource mobilization will take Kenya to the next level. I believe that, as Professor Hino told us, Kenya and Africa is able to venture into the league of wealthy, developed nations. We just need good leadership. We also need confidence in ourselves that what other nations can do, what other races can do, the African race can also generate countries that can move from poverty and move into progress. It is possible. And therefore, Mr. President, as I sit down, I want to challenge ourselves as Kenyans not to be dismissive and skeptical all the time, and to depoliticize the development of our country. We can politicize everything else. Let us not politicize the development of our country, because if we do so, then we see some of the results that have created the kind of gaps that we have seen. So we need confidence in ourselves, the ability of our nation to rise. We need strong leadership, and we must insulate, as we have this conversation, this country from policy disruption. The biggest threat of African countries, the biggest threat of the developing countries is policy disruption, where some of the things that I've talked about have been put in place, but they are disrupted when there is a change of administration. Somebody comes with their ego as opposed to the national interest, and they want to change this, to change the other, to disrupt this, instead of perfecting the foundation on which our country has been raised. Thank you very much. God bless you. I submit.
Asante sana to the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki. As you can tell, many of those points he can even speak in his dream, even as we dream into beyond 2030. So let me talk to stakeholders, at least some representatives who have been in the journey of Vision 2030 and are going to be part of the journey moving past this into 2060, 2063 as Kenya turns 100. So ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome on stage Mugo Kibati, who is the CEO of Telkom Kenya. But for this conversation, what you will find very, very, very key is he has been the CEO of the Vision 2030 Delivery Secretariat and will be lending some hindsight with that. We have the voice of the civil society, and for this, we'll have Bina Maseno, the Executive Director, Badili Africa, wherever she is seated. She's right over there. She's approaching. Please give her a round of applause. We also have from faith-based organizations, Bishop Mark Kariuki, who is Bishop at the Deliverance Church of Kenya. Mahali yako aweze kuungana nasi, ndio hiyo hapo. Karibu sana Bishop. We also have representation from the manufacturers. And for this, I'd like to call on Marianne Musangi, the Vice Chair of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Ladies and gentlemen, from early this morning, one of the first people here, he's really used to being up early for trading. I'm talking about Frank Mwiti, the CEO of the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And he has been here waiting to give us what he feels is the vision going forward. And we also have Jean Gidinji, who is a strategy consultant as well as an entrepreneur from the creative side of life. As you can see, she has a lot of creativity around her, and you're looking beautiful. Karibu sana to the panel. Thank you all for joining us. And I will start with Mugo, perhaps just for purposes of hindsight, from where we have come with Vision 2030, now we are surging forward. Yes, there has been a lot of achievements, but there's a lot of work still to do, especially for the young master here, Bwana Adrian, over there, who's still with us, taking points as you were speaking. Mugo, how do we determine, because the question to the Deputy President was, there's what was achieved with the administrations then, as Vision 2030 was coming into fruition and to be rolled out. But how do we determine that there's continuity beyond whatever leadership is in charge for the betterment of the nation?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark, and good afternoon, everybody. We're now on the 18th year since the launch of 2030, and on MTP4, the fourth medium-term plan. And the Deputy President has done a good job of explaining MTP4 achievements. I would like to say that there have been achievements in MTP1, MTP2, MTP3, as well as MTP4. And it is important that we all remember that the administrations that have come from 2008, from the late President Kibaki, President Kenyatta, now President Ruto, have all been on the Vision 2030 program through the 5-year development plans. The challenge, and the Vision 2030 team also gave us a rundown of what has been achieved and accomplished over those 18 years. The political pillar, I think, stands out because the Constitution was delivered. Devolution came in. So MTP1, the Constitution was delivered. MTP2, we had devolution now finally being enacted. We also had infrastructure developments, tremendous ones from the first MTP to the current MTP. We have had infrastructure developments across the board. There were parts of the, we focus a lot on Thika Highway and the Expressway, but there are parts of this country, I should tell Kenyans, that in 2008 were not reachable. The Isiolo-Moyale Road, for instance, didn't exist. And that not only connected those parts, the northern part of the country to the center of the country, but actually changed economic activity tremendously. Safety along that highway changed everything. So there's been roads and ports and energy. Kenyans were connected in every corner of this country to electricity. What has been more challenging has been what I would call the longer-term transformation projects, whether they be infrastructure, such as the Greenfield Terminal, the airport, LAPSET, Konza, social infrastructure, social projects, which are fundamental to where we need to get to in 2063. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, I think there was a clip earlier on, at independence talked about ignorance, poverty, and disease. And at the end of the day, whether it be Vision 2030 or 2063 or 2060, and all the projects we undertake, they will not be felt by the Mwananchi unless we deal with those three elements. That's what gives dignity to the citizen. And education, access to affordable quality healthcare, access to affordable housing or security is a difficult social project to undertake, but must be undertaken. And we have had, you saw that the social pillar is not as high up there as the political pillar, because for some of those social programs, funding was a problem. And funding for universal health care, funding for affordable housing, funding for our retirement, our pension fund, funding our savings, a savings culture in this country so that we can be able to deploy our savings rather than borrow money for these big infrastructure projects has been challenging and requires continuity. So you find that in MTP1, there was quite a bit of thinking around that, how do we enhance our savings rate to 30%? How do we ensure education, healthcare, affordable housing, and universal? But the political will to really raise the funds was challenging. It not only happened in MTP4, in this current administration, and I know that there have been a lot of debate about the execution, but first and foremost, it's important to acknowledge that as we move into the post or beyond 2030 period, we have done this in this current MTP, forced ourselves. I've been taxed a lot higher than I was taxed 4 or 5 years ago. Why? Because for shared prosperity, and it has got to be shared prosperity, we have to have everybody in this country, wherever they are, accessing those social amenities, healthcare, education, and a rooftop. Now, back to your specific question about continuity.
Yes,
the challenge has been that with each successive administration, and I'm glad that the Deputy President himself alluded to that, him being one of the leaders of one of the administrations, have not necessarily hewed to continue the programs of the previous administrations. That's number one. Vision 2030 as a holistic program has sort of been lost to the public. So we had the big four, we had the better in the current administration, but sometimes the public doesn't understand that this is part of the holistic Vision 2030. So I think it is important, Your Excellency, that we have, and constitutionally, Article 43 doesn't give us an option for some of these services to be delivered to wananchi. So I think that we must move beyond the Constitution and create a law, enact a law on national planning and economic development that forces each successive administration to actually continue with the programs that, in this particular case, take us to beyond 2030 to 2063. And if there's a review to be done, because every 5 years, every administration has a right to have its own political priorities. Actually, Vision 2030 was designed with that in mind. Why have an election? You must have your own priorities. But they must be geared towards achieving the national development plan, the national vision. And if any changes have to be undertaken or tweaked, they must be according to the national development plan or economic planning law. And that is why I feel very strongly that this conversation is important, because a robust conversation must be held by the public. The Hack 100 Years group is an example of why we must involve everybody. Because that wouldn't come from me and my generation. That comes from a younger crowd who know how to speak to the majority, the under 35, 75%.
So allow me to interject on that point, and you could pass it then to Bina Maseno, the Executive Director of Badili Africa. You've ran for office earlier at 22, I believe, and so you've seen what has happened in successive governments. But in the same breath of making sure this reaches the people, because this is not just a conversation here, it's just starting. How do we ensure that this indeed is owned and bought in by the people, wananchi? And the president has committed and said, this is not a government project. We are facilitating, but it's not a government project. How do we take it to the people? They own it because they will take it beyond successive governments.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much to the organizers of this particular session. Mark, I'd first of all like to point out two things that I haven't heard, but also appreciate the conversations that are happening. I think just going from what has been presented here in terms of development, I'd like us to interrogate further how we look at development from the traditional sense of it. And so as I sat behind there, of course, I heard about our plans when it comes to roads, when it comes to housing, when it comes to agriculture. I kept asking myself, how useful would that road be if as a young woman or just as a woman, I can't walk on it safely at night? I kept asking myself, when it comes to even us discussing about the 24-hour economy, when we are struggling with the safety conversation in this country, and we're not able to look at safety as an infrastructure. For women in this country, it doesn't matter where you come from, whether it's in the rural areas, in the community, every other day you're negotiating what time you're leaving the house, what time you're coming back home, who you need to share your details with in terms of where you're going. You're taking the number plate of the Uber you're riding on. You're being harassed at the matatu sector. And why I'm saying that is because when you look at the informal economy, and we are trying to talk about investing in the informal economy, if a woman has to negotiate with what time they leave the house, I'll talk briefly, Mark, about my own mother who runs a grocery shop. Yeah, my own mother will leave the house at 6 and not at 5 a.m. because her leaving at 5 a.m. means she not only risks being robbed, but she also risks being raped. Not many men think about being raped at 5 a.m. And at 5 a.m., I'll tell you the truth, transport from Kayole to Marikiti is cheaper than taking matatu at 6 a.m. when it's 100. If you take it at 5, it's about 50 shillings. And so she's losing money in terms of capital because of safety, yeah? And so when we don't integrate that, when I think about care work, and we've done research in this country, women spend about 4 to 6 hours on care work. And care work is the bedrock, it's the foundation of how this country runs when it comes to economic development. Who takes care of our children, who feeds our children. Most of us are here because someone is managing most of those details at home. I'm comfortable here because someone is taking care of my son at home, yeah? And so when we talk about development and don't expand it in terms of how can we reduce the amount of time women spend on care work, especially if we say they are the backbone of our economy. And so when I look at, Kenya at 100, and you ask me a question about, yes, running for office and where we are going to, when I look at even the representation of women and young people in this country, when we go down to the numbers and say, are young people represented, are young people included, what does data show us? If you look at the 2022 statistics, the numbers in 2022, we had 16,100 candidates on the ballot, from the presidency all the way to the member of county assembly, whether you are running in whichever political party or you are running as an independent candidate. 14,000 were men, only 2,000 were women. So if we talk about even achieving the 2/3 gender rule, it means even if the 2,000 women, all of them won, we still would not have achieved the 2/3 gender principle. And so then that begs the question, what are some of the structural issues that we continuously need to deal with so that we level the playing field for both women and young people? Because if we don't have representation when it comes to Kenya at 100, then it means the future we are building is incomplete because it leaves half the population out. And so for me, I'm reflecting on how we're looking at development in terms of what we are building, but also how do we expand people's freedoms and capabilities. Lastly, we talk about agriculture. I'm just going by also what other speakers have spoken about. We talk about agriculture, we talk about building more classrooms. But before a child enters the classroom, their diet is so important because data shows that if you don't have quality diet, you're going to have stunted growth. It has an impact on your cognitive ability. And so even as we think about building other classes, how are we thinking about the nutrition of our citizens so that we can be better in terms of contributing to the solutions of this country, and you're not struggling with stunted growth because we're already at 18% of stunted growth when it comes to children under 5 years in this country. And so for me, I think it's just us expanding the definitions to just not include, yes, infrastructure, but also look at how these other aspects of our lives intersect with development.
Thank you for that, Bina. Let's give her a hand for that holistic view and an expansion to the prism at which, and I'm passing it on to Marianne Musangi because she's kind of gone into what you would be looking at, and she's mentioned the aspect of a wider look and perspective of what we term as development. So it's not just the hardware, which 2030 has delivered, Vision 2030, the hardware, the infrastructure, but the holistic environment that brings safety into it. She's spoken to that. But for you, as the vice chairperson of the Association of Manufacturers, what does 2063 or 2060 look like to you, or at least what would you like it to look from the sector that you represent?
Thank you, Mark. I think we're all here to fight for a space and a seat on the table. I think it's very clear that all of us do need to have a seat on this table as we develop this Vision 2060. A vision needs to be bold and audacious. And if it's not bold and audacious, the country just won't move forward. Coming from representing Kenya Association of Manufacturers, the manufacturers, watu wangu, watu wetu, I've been sent here to say our vision for the manufacturing sector is to be the leading manufacturing nation in sub-Saharan Africa. Why is this critical? This is critical because currently today, the manufacturing sector has stabilized at the 7% mark contribution to GDP. Some may look at the glass half empty and say, oh, you're not growing. But you know what? We've been resilient. We have sustained at least that 7%. How do we grow to the next level? And why is it important we grow to the next level? It's important because even though we only contribute 7% to GDP, we actually contribute 16% to revenue KRA collections in terms of industry. We are one of the largest contributors when it comes to taxes. Employment, manufacturing sector is the second largest employer after government in this nation. So you can see, if we were to move from the 7% mark to where Singapore or Vietnam is, which is the 20% mark of their GDP, we're talking about employment of, direct employment of over 2 million people, if not higher, on an indirect perspective, because indirectly, we create traders in the field. We create the matatu industry because we're the ones manufacturing the matatus itself. We would be far larger with regards to employment. And what does development mean in terms of a nation building, industrialization? It is driven by the manufacturing sector. And we can look at the history of that from many countries. The manufacturing sector is extremely critical. So truly, I am here to say that manufacturing does require a seat on the table because we impact all these industries, whether it's through backward integration. She talked about looking at nutrition, levels of nutrition. How do we add value to the foods that we grow? And not only that, how do we take that food and export it to China, export it to Spain, export it to the US? We have trade agreements with 70% of the world. Are we currently taking advantage of those trade agreements? No, we're not. Not even a third of that is being leveraged today. So what am I saying? The infrastructure is in place, but it just needs to be looked at. It needs to be prioritized from the top, from the leadership, that manufacturing must be developed. We must support the people who have been here since the 40s and the 50s. We have local families who have been here for a long time. How do we support those to show that this industry can thrive? Because when that situation looks beautiful, that's when others are attracted into it, right? And as it grows, it will also be able to pull in the small-scale enterprise workers, the small-scale, the mzee who's chonga ingado on the side of the road over there, the lady who in her kitchen is doing personal care and beauty products. They will then be included in the full economy and the industry to grow this nation. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Yes, as we look at a 2060 or 2063, you'd hand it, oh, he already had a mic, but just keep it handy in case there's a audibility issue. She's looked at a figure, 7%, which we can do better. Some may look at it half full or half empty. I'm sure you're looking at your glass as half full, or actually more than full than empty, based on your accolades in the recent years. As CEO of the Nairobi Securities Exchange, there is quite some achievements that you have gotten over the years. However, what do you want to guarantee as an environment to ensure that we keep it on the up and up? Not just sub-Saharan Africa, even globally, we have been given our credit where it's due. So what do you see availing a brighter future for the Nairobi Securities Exchange?
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to mention 3 things, and that will probably confirm why I was here very early in the morning, seated and waiting for this dialogue to happen. But I will start by confirming that, in fact, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, as part of the larger capital markets ecosystem, has benefited quite a lot, both from Vision 2030, as well as the current administration led by His Excellency. Case in point, just 3 weeks ago, we crossed a historic milestone in our market capitalization, 4 trillion shillings. Okay? Earlier this year, as at the end of June, the NSE was ranked number 4 in the world, ahead of the likes of Singapore that we aspire to. The only African country that was ahead of us was Nigeria. Otherwise, the people we are competing with is now Japan and Taiwan. On top of that, the previous year, 2025, the NSE was second best performing behind Egypt in Africa. The year before, 2024, we were the top performing exchange in the continent in dollar terms. Now, there's something that is important to actually share with people that they may not know about matters capital. You will know that capital likes return, capital likes dividends, capital likes profit. What people sometimes forget is capital is actually a coward. Capital is a coward. Part of my role leading the exchange is to go out there and speak to investors. There are 3 things that usually happen when you go to interface with serious investors. Think about the likes of BlackRock, Vanguard, Fidelity. These are big boys managing trillions of dollars, bigger than economies of Africa combined. They give you 1 hour, only 1 hour. In that 1 hour, 30 minutes of that 1 hour is spent understanding the roadmap and the vision of the country. Because if they don't buy into it, forget it. It doesn't matter whether you're printing money. They're not interested. 30 minutes are spent unpacking the vision of the country. The next 15 minutes are spent unpacking the macroeconomic environment, which is why for us as a capital markets, we've benefited a lot from the stable macroeconomic environment that the current government has underscored. The next 15 minutes are spent really confirming whether there is listed companies that they are interested in coming into. So for me, the reason I was here very early in the morning is because I know the dialogue we're having today and the vision we'll craft as a country will tell capital whether to invest here or to invest in a neighboring country. And interestingly, that's not just capital out there. Even local capital here, pension funds, insurance companies, Mugo's money, your money, if you think that you believe the neighboring country has a better vision and a better roadmap, that's why you'll deploy capital. So why do I say capital is a coward? Because the minute capital thinks you don't have a plan, or you're unstable, or you're undecided, it votes with its feet and it goes. Number two, we are here to craft 2060. But today at probably 2 p.m., when we finish, His Excellency the President will stand up, we will also stand up, and we'll sing the national anthem. Pay attention to the last sentence of the first stanza of our national anthem. For those of you who are aware, it says, "Plenty be found within our borders." The more you interrogate our national anthem, the more you understand that's actually the original vision of this country. This republic every day stands up and sings that national anthem, which actually speaks to the vision we have. Of course, the question now is, as capital markets, what do we want? What we want is, instead of saying, "Plenty be found within our borders," we wanted to say, "Plenty be owned within our borders." What we want is to move people from stakeholders to shareholders. Our market understands ownership. And so Vision 2060 should also be about ownership. We need you and everyone else to have a stake in the country. Our capital markets support that. So I was here at 6 in the morning because it's relevant to the sector that I'm supporting. Thank you.
Thank you for that perspective. And it will be a perfect segue, because Jean, you'll have the last word on this in terms of where we're going. The national anthem is in many ways a prayer. As bishop, you lead many in prayer. As you pray for this nation as well, but you lead others in praying for the nation. And he's spoken about ownership, which is what he looks more forward to, shareholding. And this national conversation goes nowhere if it doesn't have ownership with the Mwananchi. In your view, since you're used to preaching the gospel, getting to our hearts, and I believe by the true gospel, Bishop, how do we get it to the corners of this country and preach that gospel of this national conversation and get more converts?
Thank you very much, Mark, my namesake. This is a very important conversation, because they told me that the strength and the height of any building is dependent on the foundation. So if the foundation is not right, the building will eventually crack. And this conversation is taking us to our vision. Vision is so important that the scriptures have said that where there is no vision, people perish. So if we don't have a vision as a nation, we will perish. Now, so that we get to our foundation, what do we need to do, or what is our foundation? You will agree with me that many people don't know how to think beyond their lifetime. We just think about this moment when we are here. So even when we are talking about Vision 2060, 63, or beyond 2030, we are thinking about ourselves. That tells us we need to know whom do we need to speak to. And the people we need to speak to is to go down to our children, those who will be who will be alive at that time, so that we don't ignore our youth. We go back to school, we go back to the children and ask them, how would you want to see Kenya? Or where do you see yourself? One day, if I may say this, I call children in front before they go to Sunday school, and I ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Small kids. Everyone was doing, teacher, 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 teacher. You doctor, you teacher, you engineer, you politician, you president, you. Every one of them, none of them told me, let me go and ask my mother, or let me go and ask my father. Why? Because they have a vision, they have a dream.
And we need to go back. So if we need to, where we need to invest is in our schools. So we teach our children, number one, how to be patriotic. One of the problems we have in our nation today is that we are so negative. So negative, we never see anything good. And until and unless we go down to the children and we teach them how to be patriotic, and we teach this vision to them so that they can own it. When they own it and they grow up, they become politicians, they will not want to change. To come with their own dreams, because they have a dream they captured from the beginning. When we open up their eyes, they will be able to see beyond what everybody else is seeing. So mine would be that we need to invest in our children and teach them. But we cannot talk about children without talking about teachers. Because the children will receive that which are given by their teachers. So we also need to take teachers seriously and cause them to see that what they are doing is important. There is nobody in here who never passed through a teacher. So we need to consider teachers, and we need to build on teachers so that they can build on the children. Once the children have captured, this young boy here, 7-year-old, he has a vision, he has a dream. Now, if we get all our children to have dreams and to see what the nation, what a nation they would like to look to see when they are old, they will capture it, they will run with it, and we will not be disappointed. Thank you very much.
Let me speak to someone who you probably consider your child in terms of age, and she's, yes, young enough to be your child. Jean Githinji, as a strategic consultant, you do a lot of work on narratives. And there's what he's given as an example of kids choosing the future. And the vision that they bear is based on a narrative that they have of fashionable careers. You are a creative entrepreneur. So you're looking at beyond the traditional careers that we have. So as you speak to this, tell us a Kenya that you see and hope for in 2060.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. And I love that question because I guess my intervention will be less technical and slightly more poetic. So for me, Kenya is a nation that punches above its weight. So if you look at our contributions from our scholars, our writers, our innovators, you know, we give the world M-Pesa, right? Our athletes, we break world records all the time, and even our contributions to World Agenda. The World Urban Forum was first held here in Kenya. This is the forum that actually gets the world to globally dream about sustainable urban development, and we birthed it. So Kenya punches above its weight. So for me, Kenya at 100 is about getting to a point where this excellence that comes to us, that we demonstrate, is part of our lived experience across the nation. So at the risk of sounding repetitive, allow me to share what that means, okay? So you'll dream with me a little. I want only simple things. So in my version of Kenya in 2063, our youth don't have to leave Kenya to see the world. The world comes to them. In 2063, a Kenyan is able to live in Turkana as easily as they would live in Nairobi or Shanghai or New York City. No one will have to compromise access to services, modern experiences, cultural activities, communing with nature. In 2063, most Kenyans can live in Hola as easily as they can in Mombasa, because they can find work, they can find a house to live in, they can find good schools for their children, we have great hospitals, we have places of worship, we have parks, you can go to the disco anywhere, right? So the simple dream is that our informal settlements will all be called Old Town, and we will only preserve them for tourism and documentaries, right? So our cities in 2063 are so well planned that we can navigate streets on Google Maps without referencing landmarks like take a left at the green Mama Ali's kiosk, you know? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to take a bullet train from Nyeri to Garissa and be there in less than an hour? In 2063, I wanted that for a water-scarce country, there's water reticulation to every single home. That during prolonged drought, we don't have to sell livestock at throwaway prices. That we actually can harvest rainwater across the country in huge municipal water pans. And during rainy season in Nairobi, Malindi doesn't have brown ocean waters from silt deposits. At 100 years, my hope is that Kenyan youth don't have to choose between paying for electricity tokens and eating nyama for lunch. Wouldn't it be nice not to be afraid of AI taking young creatives' space, but we have the conversation about optimizing it? Wouldn't it be nice to not have to stay at a job you hate because you're so afraid that you won't find gainful employment if you leave? Wouldn't it be so nice not to have to go to India for specialized medical treatment? Or have to join a WhatsApp group to changia someone to go to South Africa because we can't treat their cancer here? It's tragic to me that most families are only one bad illness away from financial ruin, and that working young Kenyans have to deal with black tax and supporting thousands of relatives, okay, it feels like thousands, because the state is not able to roll out social safety nets. I would love for our country to be able to take care of its aging. I would love to receive an actual refund from KRA like the way IRS in America does. Wouldn't it be nice not to have to choose between a career in corporate or creative space because you earn a livable wage either way? I have to be msanii on the side to my strategic job because I like nice things. It would be nice to have that option without having to split myself. And I know so many young people feel the same way. But wouldn't it be nice not to complain about education all the time? That we have people who are able to work in their workplaces with discipline. Wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have Kenyans taking advantage of one another? If we had a value system that allows us to grow with integrity? Wouldn't it be nice to walk at night at 2 a.m. and not fear being robbed, or walk in Tao with my cell phone and it will not be thieved? Wouldn't it be nice not to have to march in cities to end femicide because our systems deal effectively with violence against women, or even against our old aging parents, many of whom are being killed by younger relatives so that they can sell the beach plots and the farms? Wouldn't it be nice to live in a Kenya where you can sleep in comfort? That if there was a country that threw us missiles, we have the best anti-missile, defense systems? You see, I really just want simple things. So Kenya in 2063 for me is not about abstract plans, right? It's about making sure Kenyans experience excellence in everyday living. So this plan for me is about putting in place the systems, the mechanisms, and even a collective consciousness that can deliver this vision and many others for generations to come.
I'll tell you something, Jean, you got the attention of the Commander-in-Chief when you talked about the anti-missile defense system. That's something that definitely has your attention. What next is what we're talking about. This is not conclusive. As much as we will be inclusive in engaging you in the conversation, those who are watching at home, online, what next is a big question. And as a segue, Bina, I'll hand it to you because as a voice within the civic or civil society space with Badilika Africa, you're very passionate about engaging, giving everyone a chance. Is it the way of having a multi-sectoral team? Is that the way to go? And these are suggestions. No one is wrong. No one knows it all. Not anyone seated here, not Ndi, not anyone. We don't know it all. We're here to share and help each other. And as we do that, as you give us that, what do you think? Is it to give everyone a chance in this conversation? And now Melody will also help us with passing on the mic to the people. What do you think is the next step to take? Not conclusive, but just as a way forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Is it okay? Thank you so much once again. So 2 things that I'm reflecting on as you ask that question is that first, even as we look at taking these conversations to the counties, it's just not about decentralizing the conversation to the counties, but democratizing yes, that word at the county, to ensure that the conversations we're having at the county, how inclusive are they? Who are we missing in the room? Who barely attends conferences? Who are we missing in the room who does not belong to a political party or belong to a CSO conversation? Because even as we spoke about the work we do at Badili. So the fact that we even focus on taking some of these conversations to the salons, you know, and we make sure the person who's braiding your hair, because they're spending 4 hours with you, are they having these conversations? What are their concerns? Because for them, they can't come here because they need to earn a living. In the spaces where we spend our time, at the barber shops, the person who shaves your hair, because they always say men are so faithful to their barbers than even their own partners. But do they understand this particular conversation? Because you guys do a lot of banter, political banter in those spaces. So how are we bringing them in? Or how are we taking those conversations there so that we can actually harvest information on what they really, really want, you know? When it comes to young people, and of course, I'm very happy that, you know, we have students in the room today, like we have young people in the room. We just have people picked from different sectors, which is very, very important. So who convenes at the county? Or who convince this gathering is important, who sets the agenda here is important, who even gathers the thoughts and notes and ensures some of the points end up on the national agenda is very, very important. But Mark, I also wanted to add that even as we talk about where Kenya is going next and we talk about all these challenges, I think we have to also just discuss about how power manifests in our different spaces. Because you know, every other day we talk about our policies, our strategies. We talk about all those things. And I don't think what we have is a deficit when it comes to the vision that we are talking about. And I think we also just have to move away, because I'm in spaces and we're always discussing about the goodwill of the person who occupies State House or the goodwill of the people who occupy political institutions. I think we just have to move away from just relying on the goodwill of people who occupy political institutions and State House to how citizens can monitor this process, can hold the people accountable on this process so that even if you leave office today, because we have owned this process, then we are able to hold you accountable because we have seen the power of the young people and the citizens when it comes to holding leaders accountable, whether it's the finance bill, whether it's the county development plans. And so if the citizens don't own this process, then we're going to have the same challenge that you spoke about, where when a leader leaves office, some of the plans are abandoned. Yeah. But more importantly, Mark, as I wind up on my point, is with the power holders, who decides where the resources are going to be invested is very important. The agenda setting is very, very important. And I think that's why other people feel like they're left behind. And so if we unpack the power dynamics in this country, then I think we'll be off to a good space.
All right. I believe, and Mike, you can just keep this mic handy as well, pun intended. But as you get a feel of the room and help us get as many people. As you've noticed, I've only had one round of a question and just that second one to get us to what we are asking. What next? Doesn't have to be a question. What do you think? What is next?
Asante sana. Mimi naitwa Jasper Moses Mrutu kutoka Taita Taveta from Pare Council of Elders. Pare Council of Elders inasimamia wapare ambao wametengwa kwa miaka mingi sana. Mimi katika kwenda mbele, manake mambo mengi yamezungumzwa, nitaongea kwa bullet. Mapendekezo yangu ni kwamba in 2063 I envision a nation that is developed in whose development is anchored in the Constitution and more specific in the Bill of Rights. Second, I envision 2063 a nation built in foundation of socio-economic inclusion of all communities and groups, including minority and marginalized communities of Kenya. I envision a nation that strengthens, a nation strengthened with the cement of affirmative action for the minority and marginalized communities in Kenya and other disadvantaged communities. I envision a nation with a citizenry and leadership that respects and adhere to its own plans, rules, and policies, that is discipline and integrity. Thank you.
Asante sana, nitaenda nyuma kidogo. Asanteni kwa upande huu. Nitaenda nyuma kidogo kwa vijana pia. Kuna kijana hapa. Mruhusu.
Maybe we'll take one from here and kindly keep it as short as possible. We have so many people and would like to contribute as much as possible. Let's also concentrate on what next. What do you see as the next step?
Thank you so much. Kwa majina naitwa Mwanza, son of Mwanza. Mimi ni kijana wa Mukuru. Wengi wameongea Kizungu, mimi nitaongea Sheng. Nakwambia rais, mimi kama kijana wa Mukuru Affordable Estate nimekuwa nikiishi kwa streets. Sasa hii umenitransform na kaa kutoka affordable house. Hiyo ndio Kenya ambayo ninataka kuona 2060. Kenya ambayo hata ule kijana mdogo, mimi kama rasta, mimi ndio mrasta hapa ndani. Hii ndio equality ambayo unaongelelea. Kwamba pia sisi wa rasta hatutaona kama wezi, but pia tunaona kama watu wa maana. Through affordable house nimeweza kusave pesa. Yenye nilikuwa nalipa rent ya mama yangu na yangu, sasa hii nimerudi shule, niko MKU Law School, karibu namaliza shule. Nikuwe wakili kama mtu wa wengine. Mimi kama mtu wa streets ambayo nilikuwa naibia watu hii town, sasa hivi ninakaa affordable. Sasa hivi vijana wangu wanafanya kazi Bomas, Talanta Stadium na wengine hata huko Maurironi wako napata kichele. Sasa hivi hatuna reason ya kuibia watu, lakini tunapata pesa na tutapeleka Kenya mbele. So kwa hivyo rais, kwa hayo mengi na machache, nasema tutakusupport, na sisi kama vijana wale ambao wanapata affordable hostel wote tutakusupport tuweze kupeleka Kenya mbele ili tuweze kufika 2060. Asanteni sana na Mungu aibariki Kenya.
Asante, twende kwako Gitonga.
Your Excellency, I want to thank you very much for introducing this bold path for Vision 2060. It has come at the nick of time. Vision 2030 build the physical structures for our country. We recognize the immense infrastructure groundwork laid down in the lifespan of Kenya Vision 2030. As we approach now the new dispensation of Vision 2060, our national conversation must start drifting from building physical assets to maximizing technology and technological production, so that we are able to open up more openings for jobs for the youth and other people. Post-2030 era must therefore be driven purely by data, artificial intelligence, and modern technology. If Kenya is to transition into a global competitive, high-income, first-world nation, in this generation, technology cannot be treated as a separate sector. Technology must be the operating system for the entire economy. It is the core engine for agriculture sector, for trade, for manufacturing, for health. Therefore, we need to invest more in technology, especially artificial intelligence. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Asante.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Rais, mtukufu Rais, kwa ajili ya hili kongamano. Niruhusu niongee kidogo kwa ajili ya wana health ama healthcare. na nataka kupea shukrani ya dhati kama healthcare fraternity representing the cancer society of this country. My name is Phoebe from Kenyan Network of Cancer Organizations. Tulipoongea tukakuelezea kuhusu SHA, ulisikia na ukafanya ile inaitwa expanded package. Kwa hiyo tunasema kwa oncology benefit, tunasema kuendelea kwa future. Tungependa kuona future ambayo hospitali inaenda kwa wagonjwa na sio wagonjwa kukuja kwa hospitali. Hiyo inamaanisha nini? Kuhakikisha kwamba primary healthcare, prevention na primary healthcare imesisitizwa pale mashinani, kwa sababu already tuko na wale wanaitwa community health promoters. How well can we make use of them to ensure that in the vision we are not handling a sick country, because looking at the statistics in the future, the numbers of non-communicable diseases are meant to arise. But how do we ensure that even as we move to the future, there is more healthy population? And that is just strengthening what Singapore has done, primary healthcare and prevention healthcare, and strengthening what we already started with the universal health coverage to ensure that we talk prevention. Where are the diseases? Diseases are in the urban planning, they're in the schools, they're in the food industries. How do we ensure they're in the lifestyles? How do we ensure that we speak promotion more and speak prevention more? And we can assure you that if we do that and handle primary healthcare, community healthcare, and prevention, we will ensure there is not only a prosperous future for this country, but a healthier 2063 and beyond. Thank you.
Asante.
Jambo jambo Kenya. Melala jambo jambo Kenya. My name is Rosaline Alionya from Kakamega County. I'm a young person from the ODM party, and I'm privileged to be here. Now, in the Azimio manifesto in the previous election, my party leader had an idea of having one county produce one product. And I'm seated here wondering, if my county Kakamega produces maize, why is it that we have maize milling farms in Thika, we have maize milling farms in Nairobi, and not have those maize milling farms in Kakamega, so that those farmers and their children also, apart from doing the agriculture, they can also take part in the processing of the sugar and the selling of the sugar. And if we devolve this development project that we are talking about, we'll be able to create more jobs even in the marginalized communities. So if we can be able to look at this issue of one county, one product, it will be a great deal. Lastly, I've heard Professor Hin from Japan talk about us focusing on childhood education. But why is it that when Alana gets good grades, we always create for them an ample opportunity? When they're getting maybe 400 marks from primary, they get an opportunity in a national school. When they get good grades, they get an opportunity in good universities. But when these children get first-class honors, we never really create a platform for them so that these brains are able to transition directly into the human capital of our industries within the country, so that we are not able to export them outside. Lastly, mwisho, mimi kama mkazi wa Kakamega, I want shiny things, Mr. President.
Asante sana. What next? Ndio kitu ambacho tunauliza. What next?
Kwa majina naitwa Hilary Kiptalu Cheruiyot. I'm a professional marathon athlete, and I was privileged. I'm very happy to be given this by a particular juncture, even as professional marathon athlete, to put our input in this conversation. Kwa leo tungetaka kushukuru President wa Kenya Dr. William Samoei Ruto kwa sababu kuna vitu tunaona kama wakimbiaji yenye amefanya, na sisi kama wanariadha hapo awali hatuko tunaona kama tuko na mwelekeo, na ya muhimu sana kuhusu hii maneno Vision 2030 and beyond. Sisi kama wanariadha tungetaka kusaidia wa Kenya. Kwa vile mnatuelewa, sisi kama wanariadha tumeweka Kenya kwa picha mzuri pale duniani. Na kwa hivyo sisi kama wanariadha tungetaka tena tupewe chance ya kuweza kumarket, tuwekwe front kwa hii Vision 2030 and beyond. Tuweze kama wanariadha kusaidia wa Kenya na kusaidia president kushika mkono kwa hii vision. Alafu ya pili, kama mwanariadha tuko na agenda kama wanariadha tuweze kuchukua Kenya, tusaidia wa Kenya, tusaidie Kenya kuchukua Kenya ielekee Singapore. Tuko na mipango ya kukimbia, kutumia hii talanta yetu yenye Mungu ametusaidia, tukimbia hata tunapokimbia dunia, tuweze kuonyesha Kenya sisi tuko na agenda ya kuchukua Kenya to Singapore and beyond. Within Vision 2030 tunataka kupewa forum ama platform kama wanariadha tuweze kuketi na president tuweke mipangilio yetu kwa meza kama wanariadha ndio tukue considered pia sisi. Asante.
Basi, please pick two more questions from that side. We'll pick from this side. Naona hapo ndio mambo iko moto kabisa. Kisha tuanze sasa kumalizia. So 2 questions from that side as we also get 2 questions from this side as we get closer to winding up.
Thank you. Please allow me to use the stage so that everyone can see me. Thank you. To everyone present, good morning. Good afternoon, sorry, good afternoon. I am Young Fortune. I'm a host of a kids program in Citizen TV. And I also sing gospel songs under 7 Heaven Music, which is owned by Guardian Angel. I am so thankful for this opportunity. And first of all, I want to thank God for giving us this wisdom to actually gather as a nation to talk about something good that will come into the future. Let me tell you, people of Kenya, your children are very, very talented. Do you know that? They are very talented. They have the passion. They have everything that it takes. But there's one thing that they are lacking. It's that support that we need from the government. I would love to request if every county can have a big center where every child there their talent can be nurtured so that they can be able to grow. We look in the social media. Other countries, children are supported. They go outside their countries to share what they have. But in Kenya, we feel a bit of left out. And if that could happen, we would be so happy. In programs like this, let us be called. Let us show you guys what we can do. I also have a point on something I feel is very, very important, and we have not talked about it well. It is the environment. As we know, we have climate change, right? Do you know that we have climate change? And as we move forward, I feel like if we don't work on it, then we are going to be experiencing something worse than what we are experiencing right now, right? So I would love us to take this a chance to continue planting trees. Let the government make sure that industries are using the correct methods to dispose their waste. Yes. So that is what I felt I needed to tell you. Thank you so much for this program. It is very, very helpful. You are building our country, and we feel that we are seen. May God bless Kenya, and may we all work together towards achieving this.
We have a question on this side. One question mark on this side.
Asante. Wakumalizia upande huu kindly.
Hello, Your Excellency. This is Peter Joshua from Kakamega. I'm presenting Nyota, youth from Kakamega region. Now, I have one question. As you know, many youths have got difficulty in accessing financing. In your government, you said something to do with AGPO. AGPO, access to government procurement opportunities for youths. You said that 30% belongs to youths. Now, sometimes we get those chances, yes, but financing, after getting LPO from the national government, to finance that LPO is very hard for us. So, how can this government help us to finance those LPOs as we proceed with supplying new products with national government? Recently, I secured national government LPO worth 600,000 that was to supply 100 bags of maize, but it was turned down due to lack of enough finances. Now, how can this government help us in Vision 2060 to be able to accommodate the youth in accessing the national government funds without requesting for collateral securities? That is logbook and what we call title deeds, which many of youth under 25 doesn't have any of those, Your Excellency. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Diana Mwansia, a student leader from JQuat, a school rep, School of Communication and Development Studies. My question is, we have had the conversation about the national conversation about beyond 2030 vision. My question is, after this, what's next? Yes, what's the step after this? Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark Masai.
Asante sana. What next? And perhaps you've read my notes because that is the last question. 30 seconds to all of us. What next? The question has been posed to the president, and he will answer it as a citizen as well when we invite him not to conclude, but to invite the start of this national conversation. Asanteni sana for the passion that you have shown to speak and to weigh in on this. It's not the last day. It's just the first of a journey we've started. A journey he has walked. So in 30 seconds, what next? Mogo.
Thank you. Very quickly, 2 quick points on the way forward. Learning from the lessons of Vision 2030, the challenge of continuity. I want to reiterate the notion that we do need a national law that entrenches Vision 2063. And for that to happen, because you can't ring-fence budgets and performance management to specific flagship projects without that. That's a lesson that we've learned. We need to do that. But for that to happen, we need a robust conversation, a robust national conversation across the entire country. And hopefully, just to take Professor Hino's suggestion of a committee of experts, that committee of experts must be properly constituted, credible, independent, be able to elevate the discourse about politics, and most importantly, engage the public through different mediums or media. The younger generation, as demonstrated by the Hack Kenya 63 group that came here, is an example of many ways of engaging the public. So the committee of experts will have to find a way to engage that type of a public as well, and those diverse media, and be able also to carry the conversation to differentiate between the long-term objectives of Vision 2063 and what is immediate, because what's clearly emerging is that we've got immediate needs that must be addressed, but at the same time, we must think about the future of this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think for me is to say that Kenya at 2063 does not just look at housing in terms of building more homes, but how safe are we in those homes? Not just more roads, but how safe are we when it comes to using those roads? How inclusive are those roads when it comes to even people with disability accessing those roads? Not just bora kazi, but what is the quality of the work that people are doing? Access to dignified lives, meaningful work, and also reducing the underemployment so that you can match your skills to the work that you wanted to do after school. Kenya at 2063 is able to redistribute care work, is able to reduce the amount of time our caregivers are spending on care work, and they're able to take that time when it comes to development. Kenya at 2063 does not treat violence and femicide as just a gender issue or a women's issue, but it treats femicide and violence as a national security issue that is actually a threat to our development. Kenya at 2063 is just not looking at building more classrooms, but also the quality of education that our children are accessing when it comes to those classrooms, the quality of diet our children are accessing before they even enter that classroom. And lastly, Kenya at 2063 is representative when it comes to women and youth being represented in political institutions, so that we're not talking about a country where the median age is 19, but then the median age of a politician in the continent is 63, and you can get to see that gap. So a country where the majority of the citizens in this country are able to see themselves, not just at the table, but they are also able to shape the conversations on that particular table. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think this is on.
So I think what next is demonstrated by our open mic session. People need to be heard. So we need to convene these forums where people speak their heart, speak their vision, and then we need to listen. And then our committee of experts can craft those into plans that can deliver a lived experience that reflects the aspiration, the dreams of Kenyan people. Thank you.
Thank you. 3 things. I think the first one is, for us from a capital markets perspective, we would love that the capital markets is embedded in Vision 2060. What does that mean? What that means is that every Kenyan, if you have a business, if you have a project, you are able to actually come to our market and raise capital seamlessly without friction. We need to make that possible. Number 2, we need to be able to democratize wealth. Why? You know, I keep going back to our national anthem because I truly, truly do believe it's our regional vision. The national anthem talks about farm may we stand to defend. People will only defend something they own. In order for us to be able to defend the vision in terms of its crafting and implementation, we need people to own both the vision as well as the underlying resources that go to making the vision a reality. And then the last thing is, we actually want to have more listings in our market. We want to have more privatizations. And the government has done a fantastic job of enabling that to happen. Case in point, the Kenya pipeline. But we want to have more of these homegrown businesses listed on the exchange. That way, every Kenyan has a stake. Once Kenyans have a stake, it's much easier and better for them to defend the vision and actually carry it through, whether there's change of government or not, whether there's political ebb or flow, but then the vision stays. Lastly, Mark, we need the vision embedded in law. There needs to be a legal framework that captures the vision and embeds it in law. Number 2, the implementation of the vision needs to be institutionalized. We can't leave it to chance. Number 3, it needs to be audited periodically so that we course correct when we are off the vision.
Not just at the tail end. Marianne.
Thank you. I think what is important, every bus needs a driver to move the bus forward. So what needs to be identified is who is the driver. Who will this committee report to? Is it Adrian? And I'm very willing to vote for Adrian to be the leader of this. Because there must be accountability. So identifying that for me, I think, is most critical. Excuse me. The other thing I want, the enablers must also be looked at in the process. It's my voice. Thank you. Oh, sorry. The enablers are very critical. Policy must support strategy and not the other way around. When we develop policies, it's in order for the strategy to work so that we can achieve the objectives. Sometimes we forget. We develop policy and then the elephants on the ground are struggling to determine where do we go. Thank you.
Foundations. Building the foundation. We need to build the foundation of this vision, and we build it right. Once the foundation has been built and the committee of experts comes up, then we sell the vision. Sell the vision to the right people. And the right people, let's not ignore our children. Let's not ignore our youth. That way, we will be able to have a continuity in whatever we do. So the foundation is very important. Selling the vision is very important. Let's get influencers and know that the church is a great place of influence. Don't forget the church. Let's get to the pastors so we can get the Sunday school, and this will be established in their lives, and Kenya will move forward. Thank you very much.
Yes, a round of applause. And the president, I think, is giving you a standing ovation.
Thank you very much.
As he comes to give also his reflections.
Diana Mwanzia has asked me a very direct question. What next? And I have ideas on what next. But I would rather we agree on what next together. And I would want what next to come from us. Because having the benefit of the office that I hold and being a Kenyan, I have some ideas. But I would rather that we all agree on what next. Let me say two things so that I can suggest, if I may. Listening to everybody who has had the privilege of the mic here, I am persuaded beyond reasonable doubt that we have what it takes to design the next future for Kenya. Listening to the young people here, listening to people from the private sector, listening to the tech community, listening to the civil society teams around this table, and all the other professionals, it is clear to me that we have what it takes to think about the future, that Kenya cannot afford to drift into the future. We have to have a plan for that future. I have listened to the young man, sorry, I don't remember his name, who talked about startups, and that is the next horizon. That is the place where we'll create more jobs, the tech space. And he has even suggested that there should be some compulsory learning around technology because that is how the future is going to look like. Maybe we may not go all the way to make it compulsory, but we provide sufficient incentives to make sure that there are more people in that space. And all the other suggestions that have been made around this forum. My suggestion is that, as I said earlier, this should not be a government project. Government should facilitate this conversation. Article 3 of the Constitution obligates each and every Kenyan individually to protect and defend the Constitution. We are discussing in this conversation how we are going to actualize some of our constitutional rights, whether it is access to health, whether it is, as has been said here very ably, whether it is access to education, the best quality education, whether it is how we are going to deliver on making sure there is no hunger, every Kenyan has something to eat, and not just something to eat. We have been told here nutrition is very good for our children. How do we make sure that that is available? All the way to every other constitutional right that has been provided for by our Constitution. How do we do that together? So my suggestion is that we put together a multi-sectoral team chosen by the different sectors. The religious sector can give us people, private sector can give us some people, knowledgeable. Civil society can suggest to us who they want. All the other sectors can suggest to us who they want in this team. Because learning from what we have done in the past, and I have been part of those processes, whether it is the constitution-making process or all the other processes, we've always done it together as Kenyans. Not by government appointing people, but by citizens suggesting leaders who can lead this process into the future. So my suggestion, and it is not, it's just a suggestion, is maybe we ask different sectors to suggest people who can lead this process into the future, people they trust, people they believe in, so that they can lead us in this process. And then maybe that group of multi-sectoral committee or leaders can then give us a roadmap. If we need a body of experts to help us think through and to consolidate all our thoughts, my suggestion would be whatever it is that we do, they should not go and dictate to citizens what they think. They should go and listen to citizens, for citizens themselves to tell us how they want this to go into the future. I also agree that part of the challenge we had with Vision 2030 was that it wasn't underpinned by any law. It was a mere suggestion. And therefore, different administrations decided what to do. They were not obligated in any way to implement the national vision. So others came, reversed this, others came, tried to push that, and it wasn't coherent. If we do not have a coherent plan, then we drift. And therefore, it is important that we also agree on legislation that is going to guardrail Kenya into where we all want it to go. So that whoever is in office, whoever the president is, they cannot sabotage our collective progress, or they cannot interfere with where we want to go as a nation. It becomes the responsibility of every leader who has an opportunity to take us faster into the destination we agree as Kenyans. So that would be my suggestion on how we take this forward. I am sure there are many suggestions around this table, and we must agree, or let me request that we agree, that if my suggestion is good, I must be willing to give way to a better suggestion by somebody else. And if that somebody else's suggestion is better, they must also be willing to give up to the best suggestion so that we can all move forward together. So that would be my suggestion. Maybe other people can also have an idea of how we take this forward. Because I think one thing is a given, that we are here, it is now upon us, Article 3 of the Constitution, that we are obligated to think about how we move. And each one of us has as much obligation as I do as a citizen for us to give our input of where we want Kenya to be. I deliberately avoided in my statement 2060 or 2063 or 20. That should be also a suggestion by Kenyans. Beyond 2030, what do we want to call it? How do we want to frame that future? And we want to do it together. Finally, I want to ask those of us who are here. We have student leaders, we have religious leaders, we have business leaders, we have political leaders. We must not abscond duty. We must not run away from responsibility. I know there is a temptation. We have civil society leaders. All of us have a stake in Kenya. So sometimes people want somebody else to do. You know, but you know that somebody else could as well be yourself. So each and every one of us must take ownership, and we must not escape responsibility or run away from our obligation as leaders. And that is why I'm asking all the leaders to work together so that we can facilitate all the citizens to participate in this process. I can just say from a government standpoint that we are available to make all resources available for this process to be truly people-centered, citizen-driven, future-looking. We are ready for that. Thank you very much. Maybe just so that we can benefit from some wisdom, we have one of us, an elder in this room, Dr. Oburu Oginga. He should also...
And as he comes, we may have our seats. Asante sana.
Haya. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Deputy President, and all protocols observed, dear delegates. Delegates, I'm also just one of you. I'm so impressed, highly impressed by the energy of the youth. The youth has so much energy, and I'm happy that our country has a future. Because when you have such vibrant youth, then you know that this country will be in safe hands. And the development of this country to the level of Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, my late brother used to worry the president, and he used to worry us in the party when we were drafting our own manifestos, that how can we, if at independence in 1963-64, Singapore was exactly at the same level of development as Kenya. Singapore, in terms of income per capita, in terms of the NDP, in terms of GDP, and the development growth, we were exactly at the same level. And my brother used to ask that question. What did Singapore do to rise up to a level where their incomes are now 40 times, incomes per capita are now 40 times that of Kenya? We must think as Kenyans. Where did we go wrong? And where did Singapore go right? That they achieved that level. Professor Hino, who was advisor to Raila when he was Prime Minister, has given you where Singapore is and where Kenya is. He has not told you why Kenya is there and Singapore is there. He only told you where Singapore is. And where Singapore is reachable. We can reach it if we do what Singapore did. First, we must deal with this animal called corruption. Corruption is very difficult to eliminate. It is very difficult. I've traveled all over the world, but I know it is possible to build a society which is non-tolerant to corruption. We can build a society which is completely non-tolerant to corruption. We need also to reduce government wastage in government. We need to tighten our belts, those who are in government. Let us tighten our belts for the people, for the sake of the people of Kenya. And let us make sure that our young population is educated. Education is the only equalizer. And there is no shortcut to education. You have to educate young people who are trained in technical subjects so that you can attract investment. Government can only do infrastructure. Government cannot do development. Development is for the private sector. Government can only participate a little here and there. But for you to attract the private sector, you need to educate the young people. You are not going to import labor from elsewhere. The labor must come from us here. We have to get employment, and the employment is creatable. We can create it only if we educate our young people, and we also need to invest in research. People are talking about development, but they don't think that industry needs innovation. And industry cannot invest in innovation because it is too expensive. In every development plan, government should invest and support universities so that universities develop their capacities to do research, and research which is related to the industries, so that the industries can be innovative and therefore we become competitive in the international market. Kenya must be competitive. The world is moving so fast, and you cannot sleep and think that you only want to feed your people. Feeding your people is a responsibility of the government, making sure that people are fed. But the government will not do your farming for you. Government can only make your fertilizer cheaper, but farming must be done by us. Government must facilitate. For those who have lived as long as I have, I don't know how many of them here, they don't know how difficult it is to gather like this. We tried it when we were struggling for the Constitution, and we gathered for a national dialogue in Bomas in the 90s. And we were caned, we were beaten up by police. Some people ended up in jail for fighting for that Constitution because the government did not like it. When the second bombers came under President Kibaki, the government was very supportive of the process. The government supported the process. But during the end, when the government realized that some of the ideas which are coming out of national dialogue is not favorable, the government decided to scuttle it. And therefore, that national dialogue came up to nothing. That Boma's draft is still there, lying in the shelves, and it was produced by Kenyans. So when you have a supportive president who has paid, who is ready to pay for this forum to continue, those of our colleagues who are missing here are missing an opportunity. And an opportunity comes only but once, it never comes again. If you miss it, you will never find it again. Because you will not find another President Ruto. Maybe another president comes with some other ideas and we will not like the ideas. I like the experts here. They are very good. They are very, very good. But you can be so good if you don't have a supportive president. You can have good ideas, but they will lie in the shelves for good. So take this opportunity and make your ideas catapult into fruition, and let us make sure that this forum comes out with a good vision which will guide Kenya up to 2060. 2060. Some of us will not be there. But we are so happy that Kenyans are thinking about it, and I'm so happy. Thank you very much. And I want to Yeah, thank you. Power is there, and power is supporting you. Asante sana.
Thank
Asante
you.
sana. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A round of applause for Powerman. Thank you very much, Mzee. Thank you very much. I think by way of winding up, I want one governor to speak on behalf of the governors who are here to tell us what are their thoughts on how do we take this process forward. Also, to a representative from the National Assembly and Senate, for them to give us suggestions on how they think this should go forward so that we can agree. I think they have done a lot of listening, and I think it is time for them also to give us suggestions on whether we need a legal framework to establish and to facilitate this process, or whether we need, and whether if we go to Parliament, they will allocate the resources to facilitate this national conversation. I also have listened to the young people. Already, they have worked on a platform, the Hackathon 100. And they have said they will use that platform to collect and to process suggestions from young people and on the digital space. I would suggest that we facilitate that process so that we can collate and collect those views in that manner. Do we have a member of parliament who wants to, or a governor who wants to make a suggestion? The Council of Governors Chair, my good brother, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, all protocols observed. Your Excellency, I think in my mother tongue, we usually say, or in our setting, don't speak because you've not spoken if there is nothing additional to say. I've heard everyone here. I've seen all the energy. I was conversing with Dr. Ndi there, that the first part